But she does look good in that scene. I'll give it to you. I think she's hot. She's good looking.
She
This be the reason I survive. I mean, I can't.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Ash Stunt Bottom Scott.
Hi, y'all.
Big D, Dick Ebert, has the week off, enjoying life in Sweden and outside our dystopian hellhole. Each week, we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, and want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, Watchmen, and we are currently doing Westworld Season 4. Find all the information and past episodes at shatpod.com. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. Now, Ash, this is a special occasion. We had the opportunity to have co-hosts with Big D being out in Sweden, but we decided, let's keep it romantic. It's just going to be the two of us. And I'm really excited to do this one with you.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do any movie, just the two of us, and it can't be Interview with the Vampire, because clearly that would have been the optimal choice, then I'm super excited. It's a romantic comedy like Notting Hill.
And Notting Hill is a 1999 romantic comedy starring Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. It was commissioned by our good friend Will, who wrote in to tell us why.
Well, Will said, "Hey, Shat Crew. This is a commission for my wife, as it is one of her all-time favorites. My wife is British, and when I first met her, I was visiting London from America. As a tourist with a local guide, I remember getting a speed run of all the famous sights of London, and we would never linger on anywhere for long before she tired of the crowds. That is, until we got to Notting Hill, and my wife's eyes lit up. There would be thousands of people crammed into the street market, and she would stop and tell me where every scene is at and the history of the bookstore. Moving forward 10 years, and we were recently in London in May and visiting Notting Hill, and in an hour, we heard 5 different clerks telling people where the Notting Hill bookstore was. So I think it's an endearing and lasting movie to a lot of fans. Personally, I never understood Hugh Grant's appeal, and less so here in a recent rewatch. It's probably closer to a wish fulfillment movie. You know, for a guy, it's someone so great that they're into you for no reason. For a lady, it's that you can be so awesome and still down to earth. But I found it was charming and still nostalgic. The characters are relatively unique and probably it's a slightly above average movie, so I'm going to give it 1.5 wipes. Side note, thank you guys. Been listening to you all since your first 5 Shat the Movie episodes, and I don't typically miss an episode. Your dedication to bring us entertainment and genuine friendship and love for this podcast shines through every episode, and it's the main reason I come back. Over the years, I shared the podcast with a lot of my friends, and everyone, they think Notting Hill is going to be torn apart. But I'm holding on to hope that Gene and Big D will love it. Will.
Well, thank you so much for writing in. First of all, can I say how jealous I am? Because I spent all my teen years hoping that I would meet a British wife who would show me around the UK, make me a citizen so I could move in, get my little apartment in Sheffield. I'm sorry, my flat in Sheffield, and live the rest of my life in bliss.
And take you through Notting Hill and show you where the travel bookstore that sells really shitty travel books is at.
I'm also happy to report that the Blue Door in Notting Hill is still there. One of our listeners, Scott H., just tweeted me today and with a picture of himself on vacation in front of the Blue Door. So the bookstore is there. Blue Door is there. The Notting Hill legacy is intact. Well, the story of Notting Hill explores a romance between a London bookseller, played by Hugh Grant, and a famous American actress, played by Julia Roberts, who happens to walk into his shop. Released May 21st, 1999, Notting Hill was well received by critics and became the highest-grossing British film of all time. The film was nominated for the Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, with Roberts and Grant also receiving nominations for their performances, while the film also earned 2 BAFTA nominations. It also won a British Comedy Award and a Brit Award for the soundtrack. Ash, we always ask where you were and what your memories are of the movie we're covering. Today, it is Notting Hill. What do you remember?
So I don't remember when I saw this for the first time, but I remember that I saw it, and I've seen it quite a lot, actually, because this is one of my mom's absolutely favorite films, because she loves all things romantic comedy. And while I'm not a fan of romantic comedies, I have a huge soft spot for Hugh Grant. I have since I saw Four Weddings and the Funeral for the first time. That is a movie I absolutely love. I think he is so charming and precious in it. And I just think he's just a really good, genuine, normal kind of run-of-the-mill guy actor. No, I don't think I have to say, after I've said copious amounts of times on this podcast, that I'm not a fan of this genre. But for you, Will, I steeled myself to get in there and to watch this love story unfold and not just roll my eyes the whole time. And I will say I did it. So that was a nice surprise.
So I've never seen Four Weddings and a Funeral, confession.
What?
Yeah, I haven't. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen. I just somehow got this gap in my resume. But I really enjoyed Love Actually. That counts.
Of course
and
you did.
And Hugh Grant was in that. But this was the first time I've ever seen Hugh Grant in a movie starring just Hugh Grant as the male lead, a straightforward rom-com. And I remember being in Notting Hill, studying abroad when Notting Hill, the movie, was in theaters. And so a bunch of the students from my honors program went to the theater to see Notting Hill in Notting Hill. But I make it a point to not do normal things like go to the movies while I'm traveling. It feels like a waste of time. So I passed on it, but I'm so glad Will commissioned it for us. Let's hit the trailer.
Anna Scott is the most famous actress on earth.
Oh, she's great.
I have loved her.
I love her smile.
I'd say she's the most beautiful woman on the planet.
Will Thacker is the least successful shopkeeper in Notting Hill.
Do you have any books by Dickens?
We're a travel book shop. We only sell travel books.
How about the new John Grisham thriller?
That's a novel too, isn't it?
They're worlds apart.
There's something wrong with this yogurt.
It's mayonnaise.
There we are then.
But only a moment away from destiny.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
I don't think you'll believe who was just in here.
Was it someone famous?
Hi.
Hi.
Probably best not to tell anyone about this.
I'll tell myself sometimes, but don't worry, I won't believe it. There's this girl. But you absolutely mustn't tell anyone else, okay?
It's not Fergie, is it? You'll spend all your money, make you suck our toes.
Oh my God, my flatmate.
Hi.
Thank you, God. You have a stunt bottom?
I could have a stunt butt.
And what do you put on your passport? Profession, Mel Gibson's bottom.
Actually, Mel does his own ass work.
Right.
Rita Hayworth used to say, men went to bed with a dream and they didn't like it when they woke up with reality. Do you feel that way?
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Tomorrow, there'll be pictures of you in every newspaper from here to Timbuktu.
Let's stay calm.
No, you leave stay calm.
Anytime I've tried anything normal, it's just been a disaster.
From the creators of Four Weddings and a Funeral comes an unlikely romance
Anna's a goddess. You know what happens to mortals who get involved with the gods.
between two very different people.
The fame thing isn't really real, you know.
I live in Notting Hill, you live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are.
I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
In a place called Notting Hill.
I wouldn't go outside.
Why not?
William Thacker owns a travel bookstore in Notting Hill, London. Divorced, Will shares a flat with Spike, a flaky and sloppy Welshman. One day, famous Hollywood actress Anna Scott enters the shop and buys a book. Shortly after she has left, Will bumps into her while rounding a street corner, spilling orange juice on her. He takes Anna to his place that is directly across the street so she can change into a clean shirt. While leaving, she impulsively kisses him.
All right, guys. So I get it. I'm not a romantic comedy fan. So I'm assuming a lot of these tropes are not going to work on me. So I need to check myself. And so for those of you out there that are huge romantic comedy fans, you got to write in and tell us that even if you are, that you can't forgive the opening song of this movie. And if you've not seen it, it's entitled She. The name of the fucking song is She. And guys, it is a slog to get through because they don't just play like a little clip. Like it's like the whole 3/4 of the song. And it is like overlaid with these pictures of Julia Roberts smiling, her big, $1 million smile, videos of her going to premieres. And the whole time it's just on she should be the, it is awful. And from the beginning, I am not hopeful at all for this movie because Julia Roberts, they're telling us from the get-go, right? Like it's laid on thick. She's not a person. She's more. She's the embodiment of all women because she's she.
This movie came out in 1999. It was, by all accounts, the pinnacle of the Britpop movement. So I saw that this had won awards for the soundtrack, and I was like, oh, it's got Pulp on it. Does it have Suede on it? And then I saw, okay, Elvis Costello, Allison, like he's good. He writes good music. And so I will play just a clip, Ash, as you mentioned, of She, so everyone can get a taste of what we're talking about.
Good.
She may be the beauty or the beast.
Beauty or the Beast.
The famine or the feast. May turn each day into a heaven or a hell. She may be the mirror of my dream. A smile
so bad.
In a stream.
It does not make me want to make out with someone. I gotta tell you.
Inside a shell.
And the thing is that the video, if you haven't seen it, the music video for this, it's Elvis Costello earnestly belting this out in front of a giant movie screen. And he's okay. Enough of that.
You just need to let it keep playing the whole podcast.
And in the background, it's those opening scenes of Julia Roberts looking Hollywood glamorous, which are actually taken from I think Entertainment Tonight or something like that. It's actually like actual footage of her that they didn't have to shoot for the movie. And I didn't know I could dislike an Elvis Costello song as much as I dislike this. But the true travesty, Ash, comes a bit later in this kind of romantic garden scene where they break into this like secret green belt that belongs to a community. Like it's a private garden. They break in because she wants to be a little rebellious and jump over the fence and go check it out. And it's kind of like this possibly hot moment. And they play Ronan Keating's song, When You Say Nothing at All, which makes Costello's song seem like a fucking opus. Here we go.
The smile on your face lets me know that you need
Rob Thomas should have sang this.
I was just thinking, is this Matchbox 20? The touch of your hand.
Whenever I fall. But bitch, shut up, because
you say it best when you say nothing. Right, women who don't talk are so much better than women who do. Thank you, Notting Hill.
She does spend an inordinate amount of this movie just giving a big toothy smile. So maybe the song's fitting. Ronan Keating, I think you're on to something.
I feel like that's like the theme song of all the reviews that get left by me by all these misogynistic assholes where they're like, Ash, you say it best when you say nothing fucking at all.
As we were getting ready to do Westworld, I was looking back over the reviews just to remind myself of what this audience wants more of, what they want less of. And it was just like, fuck Ash. Ash sucks.
Ash sucks.
Ash reads too many books.
No, my favorite was Ash is so much hotter when she doesn't sound so smart. Like, it was like, what? No, it was. But that being said, I think that the major issue here is that like any movie that's going to make me feel romantic, right? That's going to make me feel woozy down in my tummy area and make me want to, go make out with somebody. It's got to have better music than this. And from the get-go, that's one of the biggest problems. I think this would have been probably a half a white better movie if they had just stuck with maybe like sweeping like strings and violins and these scenes rather than having these terrible late 90s like easy rock station songs.
Yeah, and thank God more modern movies are getting this down. I mean, you think about like the Batman, right? With Nirvana, Something in the Way, it's just like you hear that song, you think of the movie. You see the movie, you think of the song, and they come together so beautifully. It's just intelligent, right? Where at the time, I think they were like, hey, who are some English artists? Let's go.
That we can afford for this because we had to pay such a big salary to Julia Roberts to smile and say nothing at all.
So back to the movie. William, he's our main character. He lives in Notting Hill, the title of the movie. And this is, if you don't know, this is one of the most colorful and artsy and iconic London neighborhoods. But I felt like William's view of his own neighborhood just seemed so uptight, almost like he didn't appreciate it. He seemed like he was scoffing at everything around him. He's grossed out by his roommate. He sort of looks down on the shoppers in the street. And Notting Hill is this big, shopping area with the antiques and stuff. And I did grow to like William as the movie went on. But this opening introduction neighborhood, it was such a downer and such a turnoff to his character.
I don't know. I think he just felt consummately British throughout a lot of this movie, which I really appreciated, that it wasn't like a caricature of somebody who was British. It just was someone who actually just is. And I actually really loved him from the start. I love this. Hugh Grant does this thing where he's able to be like very bumbly and kind of awkward, but it doesn't both look like it's like being put on, and it also isn't annoying. It's really adorable. He doesn't sound dumb. He just feels awkward in the way that like a lot of people are socially. And when he starts this whole apricot and honey bit, like I was cracking up laughing because he's precious. And I kind of, in some parts, thanks to him, felt what I think these movies are meant to make you feel, right? Like that little, oh, and it makes you want to hold somebody's hand. And even somebody like Hugh Grant, who's not objectively like a hot guy, but he's precious.
I think also, and this is going to sound incredibly conceited, but for someone like you, someone like me, where our brains are working overtime, when we see somebody verbalizing that thing, we can really identify it, connect with them, because that is my inner monologue all the time. I look in the fridge and I'm like making up narratives about the foods and making questions about them that no one will ever answer. Why would you put honey on an apricot? It would just make the apricot taste like honey. I don't know. The most enjoyable moments of this movie for me were when it got really English, as you said. Like, there's nothing more adorable to me than the English muttering bits of self-awareness or understatements. There's a scene where Martin, who works at the bookstore with William, he tells a story of possibly having seen Ringo Starr, or maybe it was Topol from Fiddler on the Roof, in the street, but he was too far to know for sure. And William just responds, "It's not a classic anecdote, is it?" And they both sort of mumble their concurrence. And like, it hit me right at my Anglophilic core. I was sold.
Right. Well, and I love that the follow-up to that is he's just come back with cappuccinos. And then the follow-up is, I could really go for an orange juice. And so he goes back out. Like, they just have such a normal life at the beginning of this movie that in a way, it didn't just capture the Englishness of it. It also captured how boring most of like our everyday like jobs are and our interactions with our coworkers are, where you like them and you spend more time with them than you do with your loved ones, but it's all pretty banal, like in like the way that you interact with them. And I know that Martin is only in this movie for a couple of minutes, but he was one of my favorite characters in this entire film because he's so built out in just these little bitty moments, because he is just so incredibly English, again, without being a caricature of, he's not like, I need bangers and mash. Like, that doesn't happen at any point in the movie. He's just as English.
In contrast with that, though, I felt like at times this movie was a laugh track short of a bad 90s sitcom, because you could see the jokes telegraphed like a mile away. Like, there were those little English bits, those little subtleties in the dialogue that were brilliantly executed and a lot of fun to watch. But there are also scenes like Spike, pretty much every Spike scene. This guy is like the ultimate sitcom character, right? He only exists when William is around. You don't get a sense that he has a life of his own. And you get this scene where he's like trying on t-shirts for a date. And again, this is Family Matters. This is fucking Who's the Boss, right? There's the obvious pattern. The first shirt, it's quirky, right? Oh, it's a little weird. No, go change your shirt. I mean, he's going to put on the next one. Oh, this one's a little sexual and it's repulsive. Oh, no, go change it. And then the third one, of course, it's seemingly cute. Oh, he finally got it right. But look out. There's something risque on the back. It's very pedestrian humor. And I just felt this movie was better than that.
Right. It's just immensely unnecessary. And I think one of the biggest plot holes in this entire movie is Spike himself, because somebody like William, who clearly has his life together, he wears nice clothing, he, cleans up after himself, like, he wouldn't be in a roommate situation with this guy. Like, he would find a different roommate other than Spike. And I think if you had cut his character, this movie would have been an entire, half a white, maybe an entire white better than it actually was.
Yeah. And not to jump too far ahead in the plot, but later in the movie, Honey, William's sister, they're all sitting at dinner with the rest of the friends. And she's like, oh, I found an odd looking bloke to whom I want to be engaged. And she turns to Spike and she's like, it's you. Where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah.
Why does it exist? And having lived with Spike, why doesn't William freak out?
Yeah, he's just gross. He's not funny. He's just nasty. And I know he's a lot of people, like, it's one of the things they remember about this movie is him. But for me, he was very much like a Jar Jar Binks type character,
yes,
where like you could have cut him and the movie would have been fine. But the other big thing that this movie hangs on is this whole idea that it's like godlike to meet a celebrity, that, we all have to stop in our tracks and it changes our lives when we interact with them. And I personally have never really understood that. I could care less if somebody's a celebrity. I would never want to pay money for someone to write their name on a piece of paper that I own. I think that's really dumb. Not an insult to any of you who go to conventions, because I do go to conventions. That's just the part of conventions that I enjoy. I've met a few celebrities in my lifetime. When the film industry first came to New Orleans, they were everywhere. And when they were filming all the Kingsmen in New Orleans, I got to yell at Sean Penn once and curse him out on St. Charles Avenue because he was blocking my street. I lived on Calhoun and he wouldn't move. And so he's like, do you know who we are? And I was like, yes, and move the fuck out of the way. Like, he was an absolute asshole. And then I partied all night with someone who was on the show The Office, who was fucking incredible and awesome. And I've seen a few others, but like godlike, like, I don't think I would have the reaction that he has to this woman. And so I don't know, like, for you, Gene, like, would you act with the reverence that Will does here?
First, I'm afraid to meet my heroes ever. Like, people will always disappoint you. I do not want to meet my favorite celebrities. Maybe Jarvis Cocker would be like the exception, but I think even Jarvis Cocker, I'd be like, what if he doesn't live up to what he is in my head? Or Nick Cave, right? Like, I study Nick Cave, but I don't know if I would want to meet him. What would I even say to him? I've met very few real celebrities in my lifetime. And Big D was super excited for me to possibly meet Justin Bieber last weekend at my cousin's wedding, but unfortunately Biebs had to cancel. But the rest of the celebrities that were there, other than Mike Tyson, like, they were just like TikTok, Vine, and YouTube famous. So very low level of celebrity. And even those people were absolutely unbearable. I had no idea who they were. And honestly, for Mike Tyson, I just felt bad for him. I'm not a huge Mike Tyson fan, but the poor guy tried to go to his friend's wedding and ended up just being asked by people to take pictures who were like doing like boxing poses or something with him. And he and his wife finally had to leave before dinner was even served because they couldn't enjoy themselves.
See, I mean, I think that's the problem, right? Is that it's become this culture, the celebrity culture. Like, what's that magazine that has that spread that's always like, look at celebrities, they're just like us. And they're like checking their mail and writing a check and balancing their checkbooks. I guess if it were like 99 still, but you know what I mean? Like, they're doing like menial tasks. But now today with the TikTok and the Vine and all that shit, like, celebrity has become like a dirty word because like they're celebrities for no reason at all. It's like the Kardashians, or my son, he's really into these two guys that do commentary on video games and he watches them all the time and they're called Lanky Box. And like, if Finn met them, I think he would die because he thinks they're like the coolest people ever. But they're two dudes who have probably never had sex before that sit in their basement and make comments about video games. And I don't know. I just don't buy into it. I would give two shits if somebody famous walked into my bookstore and wanted to buy a book, other than the fact that I made a commission, because I don't know how many of those he makes a day.
Yeah, if it were an author or maybe an artist, I might say, okay, I'm curious maybe about like their worldview or something like that. The one that blows my mind is with athletes. So I'm a season ticket holder for Phoenix Rising Football Club, and they'll often have these things where they're like, oh, we're going to have free pizza and a meet and greet with the players. And I'm like, I'm down for some free pizza. I show up for that part. But then they're like, yeah, you can meet the players. I'm like, I literally, all I say to them is like, hey, great job. Thanks. Thank you. But like, what? Hey, 21-year-old kid, how do you soccer? What the fuck? Like, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I wanted to talk about the bookstore. So you and I, both avid readers. William, again, appealing to us as the key audience here. He owns a travel bookstore in Notting Hill. Anna comes shopping in his store. She's browsing through, picks up a book, and William says the book that she's browsing is crap. My dude, you own the bookstore. Why are you stocking bad books? And beyond that, you seem really annoyed when people come in and ask for non-travel books. Now, I'm no businessman. I'm no entrepreneur here, but maybe consider changing your business model and selling the thing that people come to your store looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I know. This is supposed to be a movie and we're supposed to suspend all disbelief, but this is not like a Michael Bay Transformers film where like I'm having to pretend that another world exists. And I'm watching it going, how does this dude survive and make a living? Because Notting Hill is expensive as fuck to live in. And you've got a very niche bookstore that I can't imagine you're selling a lot of books out of. You have to have massive overhead. I can't imagine the rent you're putting in per month. And you've got Martin, who is as adorable as he is. He's kind of useless. For me, there's no way William's not bankrupt in a year.
Yeah, we see 3 customers if you include Anna, the shoplifter, and the guy who's just looking for classics, right? 3. In the entire course of the movie, that's all the people that are in there on one of the busiest shopping thoroughfares in London. William is totally pulling some financial shenanigans. Martin even pops into the back room and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt you while you're cooking the books. This guy's filthy. He got dirt on him.
Probably.
Well, Anna later invites William to visit her at the Ritz Hotel. Upon his arrival, he is mistaken for a reporter and ushered into a press junket for her new film. Anna joins William on a date to his sister's birthday party later that evening. Later, the two enter a neighborhood park where Anna again kisses Will. At a restaurant the next day, Will and Anna overhear 4 men at a nearby table discussing her, first praising and then disparaging her and equating actresses to prostitutes. Will confronts them and Anna introduces herself and calmly insults the stunned group. Anna invites Will to her hotel room, but he quickly leaves after discovering that her movie star boyfriend, Jeff King, has unexpectedly arrived from America.
So again, I loved Hugh Grant in this. I think the moments that he's awkward are the best moments of the movie. So there's this whole interlude here where he gets accidentally stuck interviewing all the actors of the movie she's just filmed. He's never seen the movie. And my favorite is when he's asking the guy through a translator if he relates to a character. And the guy's like, no. And he says, why? And he's like, well, because I'm a carnivorous alien who like eats his own kind. Like, it's so well done. It's so funny. But then you get their interactions and the lines that he gives her are so cringy, you guys. I mean, my least favorite one from this part of the movie is, it's like a dream to see you again. A good dream. Guys, come on. Like, I had such an eye roll because for me, I cannot stand it when guys hit on me in public, you know, where they get really aggressive. And it's even worse when they're not aggressive and they're just really sappy. And I don't think those lines ever really work. So ladies, please write in. Is this what does it for you? Is it this Hugh Grant puppy dog eyes? You're the most beautiful woman in the world. Did you fall from, you know, did it hurt when you fell from heaven because you're an angel shit? Because I feel like, ladies, we deserve better.
I mean, let's be clear here. William's not simping. He's not tipping his fedora and saying, "M'lady." You know, if acting like Hugh Grant earns a guy's spontaneous kisses from strangers, I should have been the world's most wanted man in 1999 because this was my jam. Like, I would never hit on a woman like a stranger, right? But once we developed a rapport and she'd signal interest, oh, fuck, I would lay it on pretty thick. mean, I'm a writer. You don't do this?
Do I write lines like this? No. And I am sorry. I call such bullshit right now because you are so much swaggier than Hugh Grant is. So like a line coming out of Jean Lyons dressed all in black saying something that's a little bit laid on thick is going to be different than like some of the shit that he lays on. Like it was surreal but nice.
I'd be like, it's a dream to see you again. A fuck dream.
See, even right there, that's better. Like, for some reason, that's so much better.
Hire me, Hollywood.
Than this, right? It's just movies like this. I am convinced movies like this are what men think that women need to hear. And then the women watch it and like it's the only thing they get. So from like a young age, we think that's what we're supposed to want to hear. And then, you know, that's how the patriarchy's formed. So
I love going to horror movies in the theater just to hear people say like, no, you know, and react with the screen. Ash, I want to go to romantic comedies with you in theater just to hear you scream, no.
Now, I've complained a lot about this movie so far, but I have to admit there is a huge section of this movie that I genuinely enjoyed a lot more than I have a lot of our films recently. And it begins really when Anna and William get to his sister's party. And I don't remember this part of the movie until I watched it this time. But the birthday party scene is fantastic. You know, his sister's a bit off, but it's not too much. You know, the part where she follows Anna to the bathroom was hilarious because I think that probably would happen. The whole brownie bit was one of the best written parts of this movie. Mm-hmm. The whole finding out she's a vegetarian. Yes, I could see it coming, but it was still funny and charming in the way that it was done. And Hugh Grant is so good in this scene. And the supporting characters are so well built and built out that it's great. And the way they try to all act like they don't care that she's famous, I think that's how real nice, decent human beings would act if you brought this huge celebrity to, you know, your random sister's birthday party. And I got really sad when this part was over because it's almost like it was written by like a committee of people, because there's the one person who's writing those really shitty lines, and then there's the person who wrote scenes like this. And if the whole movie had been like this might have been a zero white film for me.
Before I make up my mind about anybody I meet, I have to see how they react to their friends and their family.
Yeah.
And when you see William with his friends and the way he interacts with them, how much he cares about them, how humble he is, I can see why she would fall in love with him, right? Why she would go along with this. It's very genuine. I totally agree that this is the strongest part of the movie. And they made William's friends interesting and fleshed out. Bella uses a wheelchair. She doesn't have to. Like, they don't have to write it that way, but she does. It's flavor, right? Her love with Max is so sweet. You connect with those two, even though you only get a few minutes with them. Bernie, he's hilariously sad. I love Bernie. And honestly, the one friend I didn't dig was Spike. And he's the one that gets called out the most as like a highlight in this movie. Several listeners on social media said he was the best part of this movie. But to me, he was the one flaw. He felt like a flat caricature in comparison to all these other real people.
Yeah, and the casting is so well done in this movie as well, just in terms of the way that they look. Because in a lot of films, the best friends are super hot, right? Like, they're all like these like insanely good-looking people that are like the only hot people that live in this part of town. So of course they're all friends, right? But I like that Julia Roberts sitting at this table really looked out of place, because objectively, Julia Roberts is an exquisite woman. Like, she is absolutely beautiful. She looks like a movie star, and you can't help but think that she looks like a movie star. And so when she's sitting at that table with attractive people, they're not unattractive people, but just normal looking people. And then there's her, like, that also set the scene really, really nicely. They were just smart with the way that they did all of this part of the film.
I personally thought Bella was a smoke show and the hottest person in this movie other than Hugh Grant. Julia Roberts, she looks fine in this movie other than that mom outfit she wears to the birthday party. I don't know what the fuck was going on there. But someone in the hair department went overboard. Hugh Grant's hair in this movie does not move at all. His sister, Honey, her hair looks like it was like punk day in a high school spirit week. And then that shoplifter who sticks the book in his trousers, he looked like he escaped the Shire and then snuck into a Verve Pipe video. What the fuck was going on set?
I don't disagree, but come on, he's floppy. He's got to have floppy hair because he's,
True.
his nickname's Floppy. But I forgot that Hugh Grant actually is fairly handsome and he looks good in this movie. I think he does. He's normal enough, but like he's handsome enough that they might make sense. But regarding costumes, I thought Julia Roberts wore some pretty cool stuff in this movie. My favorite was that ridiculous 3-piece suit that she wears with the silk purple tie. I thought she looked really hot in that scene.
She looked like a backup guitarist for Robert Palmer. I'm surprised you're not with me on her best outfit by far being that black beret with like the cropped mock turtleneck and the jacket. I was like, holy shit, Julia Roberts has abs.
I don't know. I have a problem with a turtleneck. I hate a turtleneck. I think they're the worst invention. And I especially hate a turtleneck that's a crop top.
I once read, I think it was a Winston Churchill quote, who said that every man looks more so in a turtleneck. And of course,
more so what?
More so man.
Oh.
And so I was like, fuck, I'm going to wear turtlenecks from now on. And I went out and like every time my mom would take, I was a child. Every time I would go out shopping, my mom would be like, I want turtlenecks. I live in Arizona. And man, did I get rid of a lot of turtlenecks right around 1994.
Yeah, they
Terrible.
just remind me of Steve Jobs at this point, like the black turtleneck. But she does look good in that scene. I'll give it to you. I think she's hot. She's good looking. This be the reason I survive. I mean, I can't.
Well, Will's friends arrange a series of dates for him, but Will is uninterested in another relationship. One day, a distraught Anna appears at Will's doorstep, needing to hide from a tabloid scandal. She apologizes about King and says their relationship is over. They make love that night. The next morning, paparazzi, inadvertently tipped off by Spike, besiege the house and take photos of Will, Anna, and a half-dressed Spike at the front door. Furious, Anna blames Will and leaves.
We've talked a lot about Will up until this point. Let's talk about Anna, because she is obviously the other really big character here. And one of the things I think they do well in this movie is that they develop her very, very slowly. She has that mystery and is kind of just the persona and not really a person until much further into the movie. And I think that works. But for some reason, when I watched it before, I remember her being just kind of like an asshole, like just not a nice person. And on rewatch, I have to say, I got this performance so much more and actually grew to really like her as a character. Because here she is. She's someone that has like no privacy at all. She just wants normalcy, but she can't get that without giving up what she does for a living. And I think that's a really nice juxtaposition. And maybe it's just because today and what celebrity culture has become that this makes more sense to me. But I want to also say, though, she does kind of treat Will like shit. I don't think that's something that's aged differently. But he's also kind of a pushover and doesn't really stand up for himself. And so I think they both have some fault there. But all in all, I thought she was cold when I watched it previously, but I didn't on this rewatch. And I think she's just a complicated woman and a complicated character. And I like that because we don't get a lot of complicated characters other than like the weird ones that get domesticated by the end, like in 10 Things I Hate About You, right? Like we only get the taming of the shrew storyline with a complicated woman. And here Julia Roberts gives us this really complicated, very diverse performance here than what we normally get in romantic comedies from Julia Roberts. And I thought she gave a really good performance in this.
Hypothesis, perhaps as your celebrity has grown, you identify with celebrities in film more closely.
My celebrity on Shat The Movies?
Yeah, and Shat on TV.
My Shat The Movies hate mail that I receive from time to time has made me feel more for Anna. Maybe.
I just want to live a normal life now.
Just leave me alone.
Just want to run around in my cropped mock turtlenecks
and my black beret.
I don't think Anna is a villain. I don't think she's at fault in all of this, right? Like it's all her fault. But I do wonder throughout this movie if she really loves William, right? Like I was getting some serious red flags from 3 key things. One was her impulsiveness, right? When she like lays that kiss on William, I'm like, why? What the fuck? Like you clearly are not thinking about your actions. Her assigning guilt was a super big red flag to me. Everything's everybody else's fault. Nothing's her fault. And then, of course, her flip-flopping, right? I want you back. I don't, whatever. We can have a relationship. We can't hide what we've got. Let's do it under the pretense of whatever. She could have at any point said to her publicist or whatever, which, by the way, he fucking knew. Like that dude, he picked up on it, right? like, hey, I like this guy. Can you just give us a second? But she refuses to. So I'm not a big Anna fan, but I don't think she's the worst.
Yeah, I just have to say how much I appreciate that on your list of red flags, her temper was not one of them. Because I hate the fact that in a lot of movies like this, when women have a temper that's very often seen in male characters, that people are like, oh, well, she's just a bitch, and I don't know. And maybe this is just personal because I have quite the temper on myself. And the way she kind of explodes sometimes, I definitely have done, especially early in relationships before I'm really like feel safe with somebody. And I think that's what I liked about her is she has a vulnerability about her that comes out in these very toxic ways that I see you, Anna. I get it.
And to be clear to people who haven't seen this movie in a while or have never seen it, right? It's not like she's like raging. She's not breaking shit or anything like that, right? It's just that she's assertive and can be quick to anger, right? So that's what we're talking about with her. On the flip side, you've got Hugh Grant, who's like the most patient fucking man on earth. And I've always looked at Hugh Grant and thought, so? But now, Will, now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the looks, aside from the Englishness of him, he is a unique actor in that he gives writers the freedom to write the most anachronistic, poetic, cerebral, neurotic lines. And this guy manages to deliver them in a way that for most part works. It's hard to say things like, you're lovelier this morning than you ever have been. Or I think goodbye is traditional. This is the place. And be taken seriously and seem, dare I say, kind of sexy.
Yeah, he's really adorable. And seeing like you're lovelier this morning, bleh. But the other two I think are so sexy. Like he's so assertive in those moments where he looks at her and he just so confidently is like, this is the place. Like this is where you're supposed to be. Yep. Like those are the moments that he works for me when he actually has like that backbone and he is in control in that way and just is honest with her. And I think that's the thing about Hugh Grant's performance is that he reminds me of like the way you change. And like, I don't know, maybe you didn't go through this, but when I was younger, I only dated people that I thought were really hot, right? Yeah. Like everything was about looks for me to start with. And I cared a lot about that. And I cared a lot about like somebody who I was going to have like a lot of passion with. Let's just put it that way, like physical passion with. And now that I'm 38, 39 in less than 2 weeks, like getting somebody that I can like cuddle with at the end of the day, where he can like give me a foot massage while we binge watch like a television show, that matters so much more to me than like hot sex anymore, which means both that I'm getting old and it means that I would totally date a Hugh Grant now, as opposed to, I don't know, like a Lestat in my younger days, right?
That's an important call out, though, because, I've often said, why do I need a person to be nice? Why do I need a person to be financially stable? Why do I need any of those things? Or even have a sense of humor, right? Because I can get that from my friends. I can get that from myself. What I want in a mate is mating, right? But there's so many more dimensions to a romance that you're completely right in calling out. What about that person who will just spend time with you on the couch reading, or that person who will just lay a hand on you on a flight, right? Something like that. I don't mean hitting. I mean like holding hands or something.
Nobody thought that.
Right. I thought that. I was like, is he talking about hitting? But no, but what I mean is that there's so many dimensions to that, an intimacy that you have with a person that you just cannot reasonably have with, just a general friend or consistency or yourself. I mean, I guess you could have that, but actually, let's extend that a little bit further. I can pretty much take care of myself sexually now. I've been around on the planet long enough.
You figured
I know what
out.
I need, and I can do it. Right?
Yeah.
But that's not what I need from Sarah. I need a different thing.
When I think there's this thing in your youth where you think that like you can only have hot sex with somebody you have passion with. So like somebody you fight with a lot or somebody who's like passionate in that way. And really like, I bet you they had really hot sex because there's an intimacy and like a closeness there that's just different. Right. And I mean, I hate that phrase making love, but like, there's something different about him that like you can have sex with him for 30 years and not get tired of living with him. Whereas you can have hot sex with somebody and get tired of them after like 48 hours. Like Alec Baldwin, because Alec Baldwin has the most random cameo in this movie that I have ever seen in my life. I'm like, oh, Hugh Grant. Oh, Julia Roberts. What the fuck? Alec Baldwin coming around that corner as her boyfriend, it is such a weird 1999 choice because it's not like the Baldwin craze was still going on for Alec in the late 90s, early 2000s. You could have cast Leo or Brad or Matt Damon or a number of other people. I just thought it was so weird and completely took me out of the movie.
I think he's perfect for the role. Like if you told me to cast a guy who's pompous, kind of good looking, but kind of repulsive, loud American, Alec Baldwin's your guy, right? He's exactly the kind of guy that would both make you question your attraction to a woman, be like, how could I be attracted to a person who would sleep with Alec Baldwin? But simultaneously, you're sort of intimidated by his confidence and just his fucking, I don't know, largeness.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. For me, Alec Baldwin is so synonymous with Jack Donaghy on 30
True.
Rock now that I have such a hard time seeing him as anything else. So maybe in 99, it would have been fine. But can we just talk for a second when like Hugh Grant became completely unsexy when he cleans up the plates? Like who the fuck does that? You want to talk about red flags? Like that's the red flag for me is like he's such a pushover in that scene.
I think he was trying to give Anna the opportunity to say something, right? And the fact that she didn't, I don't know. I don't disagree with you, but I was
sad.
reading it that way. Oh, it's fucking sad as shit.
Yeah.
Will, it's a bit serendipitous that you commissioned this movie exactly when you did, because there's a scene in the movie where Anna is asking what men find so wonderful about boobs. And William asks to see hers again to figure it out. What is the magic about boobs? And it reminded me of how rad it is to see boobs pretty much anytime I want. A lot of people take it for granted. It's fucking awesome. And when I watched this movie, it was literally on the same day that I discovered the free use fetish. And I was like, hell, I think I might be into this. I've never really had a fetish other than if you would consider boots a fetish, but holy shit.
Boots?
Boots, like that you wear. You know,
You have
galoshes,
a boot
waders,
fetish?
combat boots, riding boots. Yeah, boots are hot.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I don't want to fuck a boot.
Right. No, I figure that. I mean, you could maybe, but
You could. Yeah, they're
I mean, I wear a size 6 shoe, so that might work. I mean, they're very narrow, but
What are you trying to say, Ash?
that you could fuck my size boot. Like, you know,
Well, that sounds like free use. Can I do it anytime I want?
anytime you want. And there's 2 of them. I don't know. So what's really funny, you want to talk about serendipitous. So I just learned about the free use fetish about 2 weeks ago and an article that randomly came up in my newsfeed on Twitter. And I have to say, I found it really fascinating, but I question the logistics. So for those of you out there, here is Shat on sex for a second. So the free use fetish has 3 iterations. So the first is this idea that anyone can use you just at any time, right? Like you're just a fuck meat puppet. And no thanks. That sounds awful. The second is where, which probably is the most common, is where like you can have sex anytime you want with your partner. You're monogamous. And so like if I want to have sex with you, like we're having sex. And if you want to have sex with me, we're having sex, you know, wake up blowjobs, whatever. And then there's the third where like the person's having sex with you and you just go about your daily tasks. Like you're like cleaning or cooking and getting fucked from behind, which also sounds awful, but maybe the second, right? But back to Anna and the boobs thing, right? I don't get it. I don't get what's so interesting about them. Like, I get that objectively women's bodies are beautiful. I do think that. I think women have beautiful bodies and I think breasts are a part of their bodies. But I agree with Anna. Like, you get milk from them. They fall throughout your life and become quite annoying. Your mother has them. Like, I don't know. I don't get the big deal other than it means that like the rest of the woman is probably naked. And so that's cool.
So to add to our 3-layer cake of serendipity, I got to point out that as I went down the free use porn rabbit hole, it started off with the second type that you described. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It was a video. There's 2 women. They're sitting on a couch. I think they're like watching TV or something. One of them takes her underwear off and the other one just starts going down on her. She understands, like, that's the signal. Go for it. I'm like, cool. The second one I saw was there was a woman sketching and a dude comes up behind her and just starts pounding away and she just keeps sketching. That one I wasn't so into.
No.
And then the third one was like this lady just getting like passed around a party where people were just like, it wasn't a gangbang. It was like people were just having a normal party, but occasionally people would like put down their hors d'oeuvres and go put it in her. And I was like, absolutely no. So to clarify for the audience, I'm a type 2.
Yeah.
I'm a type 2 free user. But getting back to your point about boobs, Ash, I am I am way more into legs and good butts than boobs. Boobs are kind of low on my list of importance, but they are super handy as a signal. Like it's a green light, right? For the most part, like, hey, check it out. There's some boobs over here. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, with your significant other, not
right.
random people.
No, I don't just think you mean just like on the street. No, like
Yeah,
I totally understand. I think it's just hard for women because there's not much on a man that's like a boob, right? Because like, no offense to men out there, but like, I don't really want to look at your balls. Like, they're not really attractive parts of the body, like, you know. And like, dicks in general are also kind of weird unless they're hard, and then they're kind of sexy, I guess. But like, you know, like I don't get excited about like a nip slip amongst a guy. So.
While we're talking about fucking, I want to talk about one other aspect of this movie that involves sex. I think we've all been in a situation where you just slept with someone, you went to the front door, and oh shit, there's someone else outside that shouldn't see you there or the person with whom you just slept, right? Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your roommate, maybe it's a woman's estranged husband with whom she still lives. We've all been in this scenario. The first thing you do in that scenario, just instinctually, is you go to the person with whom you just slept and you explain the situation. William in this movie, he walks out, sees the paparazzi, and then just lets Anna walk right by him and out the front door to greet the paparazzi. It just doesn't add up. Like, is he that soft?
Yeah, you know what also doesn't add up is that he has a soundproof door and they can't hear all the hundreds of people out there. Like, that was the other part I didn't buy, is you can't tell me that they're up on the second floor, like post-coitus, like, you know, chatting. She goes downstairs, she makes breakfast, brings it back upstairs, and like never looks out the window or catches a glimpse of the fact that there's 1,000 people with cameras outside.
There it is. We found the only plot hole in Notting Hill.
That's it. It's perfect other than that.
Well, several seasons pass and Will remains miserable. When he discovers Anna is back in London making a film based on a Henry James novel, something he had suggested, he visits the set unannounced and leaves after overhearing her being dismissive about him to another actor. Anna comes to the bookshop the next day and explains she was merely keeping her personal life private. She confesses she loves him and pleads to rekindle their relationship. Will says no, explaining he would be too hurt if she left him again. He meets his friends and sister at a restaurant with a gift from Anna, Chagall's original La Mariée. They half-heartedly support his decision about Anna until Spike arrives and calls him a daft prick.
I know that this is the most famous part of the movie. It's the part of the movie everybody quotes all the time. The whole, I'm also a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her. Like, I know. And I understand that the writers wrote that because they were in the writer room. They're like, fuck, this is going to go on a mug and a t-shirt. And like, this is going to be it, right? They felt that. We're supposed to grasp our chest and go, oh, and just feel this urge for them to be together. But I didn't. I loved her speech up until that point. I thought she was very authentic. But this part, I just find really childish. Nobody talks this way. And I have been in, as we all have, situations where we're both trying to get someone to stay with us or having somebody that's trying to get us to stay with them. We've all been in this situation before. And if someone used this line on me, like, I'd be like, bye. Like, there's no way I would take them back because it feels like gaslighting in a way. Like, it felt really gross. Am I alone?
No, I'm right there with you. She was doing reasonably well up until that line. That line sounds manipulative as hell. And what's weird is later when Will is telling that tale to his friends and like polling them as to what he should have done, then the line hits. It's because she's not delivering it in the actressy way that she delivered it. It's kind of genius in its delayed authenticity because the line itself is very romantic, but only secondhand.
Right, which is why it came out of a writer's room. This goes back to my theory earlier about how these things are what men think we want to hear as women because of the fact that on paper, this sounds great. If I'm telling you the story, like, and you'll never believe what he said. He said, I'm just a boy standing in front of you asking you to love me. You'd be like, oh my God, that's so deep. But it's not actually deep. It's just really sad. And I think overall, I just have a problem that this grown-ass woman refers to herself as a girl. Like, why does she have to be a girl in that moment? Why can't you just say, I'm also a person who's standing in front of you saying, hey, love me? Like, that sounds better.
Will realizes his mistake, and everyone races across London to find Anna, who is holding a press conference at the Savoy Hotel. Will arrives just as her publicist announces that Anna is taking a year off and leaving the UK that night. A reporter asks about the embarrassing photographs taken at Will's flat, and Anna says they are just friends. Will, again pretending to be a horse and hound reporter, asks her if she would consider being more than friends if Thacker begged her forgiveness. She says she would, then asks to be asked again how long she plans to stay in England. Smiling, she answers, indefinitely. Anna and Will marry, and she is now pregnant. They spend time in the park that they had visited on their first date.
Of course, they have to race across London because all of these films have to have the panic scene to get to the final location, to make everything okay, where everyone eventually lives happily ever after. It is by far my least favorite thing from this genre, this whole romantic comedy, like last minute craziness. We saw this in The Wedding Singer combined with an airport run. It's this whole modern day, like knight in shining armor thing, right? Where the car is the horse. And this is done very smart and self-aware in the movie Pretty Woman. Like, I like it there because I think it works. But I don't know. I just think the whole racing to save her is so tired. It's not charming. I think that it's tedious because I would have just rathered him in the bookstore take her back and let's all celebrate because he got a bomb-ass painting and a bomb-ass chick and now they live happily ever after.
I was mostly saddened by Big D missing yet another moment in great English car chases, this time involving a Peugeot wagon. That was amazing. The fact that all the friends had to go, because I do love all the friends, that kind of made me smile with all of them packed in the wagon. And it at least elevated it a degree above, say, Nuns on the Run. But yeah, this is a played out cliche.
Right. And I just want a little authenticity, right? Like, I just want a little realism. I think that's why the love stories I love the best. They have a bit of that. And now I'm going to sound like an idiot when I say this because I just said I love realism. But like, my favorite romantic film of all time, like romance, is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I know that that's not real, that we can erase our memories of others, but that is a real movie where they realize that they're probably still going to hate lots of things about each other, but they choose to be together anyway, which, by the way, is the definition of marriage or long-term relationships. You hate things about the person, but you decide to be with them anyway. There is so much romance in that movie that makes me clutch my chest and cry and go, oh my God, and want to hold a hand and be with somebody for all eternity, that a movie like this with a car chase just doesn't make me feel.
And they were on the right track for a moment. I was so proud of William for saying no to Anna. It was smart. It was realistic. It was gutsy. And it really is the right move. Like, he had all the right reasons, right? The fact that when she does break his heart again, which she will, that he has to see her everywhere. And he spent so long trying to get her out of his heart. And yes, we saw in the end that they marry and, of course, are expecting a child while wistfully reading on the park bench. But realistically, like, there's like a 1 in a million chance that this happens in real life, unless the key to this, I think, is William has to constantly play power games with her to keep her interested. Because you noted the only time that she really seemed to be energized or motivated was when she couldn't have him.
Right. And it's not just that power imbalance with her being a celebrity and him being a normal bloke, right? It's also this whole idea of money. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but money is a huge imbalance between partners. I married someone who was from like 4 classes above mine that I was raised in. And while he is wonderful and kind and a good person, our biggest fights all come from that power imbalance that exists just because he brought money to our marriage in a way that this woman who's making $15 million a film, as she says earlier, and we all know that his bookstore has clearly closed by now, and if it hadn't, the pandemic, I'm sure, shut its doors. And so he's got nothing. Like, he's just someone who's there following her around and rubbing her head in a park somewhere in Notting Hill. Like, you know, like, these guys, I hope it works out for him, but man, once those car chases are done, I don't know if the passion's still there.
Well, now is the time in the movie where we give our wipe score for Notting Hill. Zero Wipes is a perfect movie. It is crawling into Hugh Grant's vast, hairless shirt opening and emerging smelling of Earl Grey and fine English laundry. And Five Wipes is an absolute disaster movie. It is tongue-kissing Spike after he smoked his 15th cigarette of the day and eaten a bowl of mayonnaise. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your score for Notting Hill?
I have to say, I never find the zero wipes appealing, but that was such an appealing zero wipe that you just wrote there, Jane. Oh, Earl Grey's lovely. Okay, here's the deal. This is not the worst movie I have ever seen. It's not the best. I think, let's talk about what's good. Hugh Grant, so charming in this movie. The character he plays is great. Julia Roberts, she's pretty good in it. But y'all, the writing is just awful in this movie. There are moments that are brilliant, and then there's moments that are really insufferable. And I think the problem is that this movie falls under the weight of the genre it's a part of. You could feel that they were writing a different type of romantic comedy and felt the need to put in these romantic comedy tropes. They feel like add-ons. They feel like extras that just don't belong in what is actually a pretty decent film. I was originally going to give it 3 wipes because that's what I felt. But after talking about it with Eugene, maybe it's just because we're a twosome tonight and we got to talk really in depth about it. But for me, I'm going to lower my score and I'm going to say that it is just straight across the line average. And I'm going to give it a 2.5 wipe.
Twinsies, once again.
Yeah.
I'm at 2.5 wipes as well. Guys, I'm sorry. This is what happens when Ash and I get together. We just do the same thing.
It's an echo chamber.
You know, possibly it's all just we're both perfectly objective. The writing in this movie may not be as strong as a whole, but I enjoyed the dialogue. And Will, I got to tell you, I'm officially a Hugh Grant fan now. I really like the guy. His friends rounded out the movie. I just think it could have done better with a somber ending, right? He says goodbye and that's it. It's still romantic, guys. It's still a romantic movie, even if everything doesn't work out because they had a romance, you know?
Yep.
Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. And I wanted him to walk away. I wanted to be proud of William for understanding he was a better person. I'm not trying to fanfic here. I'm just saying that with all we were presented with, it would have been the stronger ending. And the ending itself was a dissonant note in an otherwise good movie. It is average. It is enjoyable to watch, Will. I don't regret watching it because it opened Hugh Grant to me and I want to see more of his movies now. It's 2.5 wipes for me as well, which gives us a unanimous wipe score of 2.5 wipes.
Well, and now someone has to commission 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Because if you liked Hugh Grant in this, like what made Hugh Grant was his performance in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, where he actually has a little bit more of a backbone. And he's so funny in that movie. It's really good.
Now, with a wipe score of 2.5 wipes, that ties this movie with a ton of other movies in the Shat Pantheon, right around the 199 spot. It is tied with Empire Records, Back to the Beach, Little Giants, Batman Mask the Phantasm, Ravenous, and Taps. It is slightly better than The Fifth Element and The Full Monty, and slightly worse than Army of Darkness and Halloween.
I think a lot of that makes sense. Like Empire Records, especially. Like, I think I enjoyed this as much as Empire Records now as an adult. I think that that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's horribly out of place. That middle zone, it's pretty packed in there, and not having Big D score on this as well, that could kind of tip it one way or another. So remains to be seen if he wants to weigh in on this one, but that could change how this is ranked, and I'm guessing probably for the better.
Yeah, I'm thinking he would have really hated this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's such a softie though. Maybe
it's hit or miss, right? He's either going to love it or he's going to despise it.
All right. Well, stay tuned next week and find out what Big D thought of it. Speaking of next week, in our next movie coming up, conniving attorney Fletcher Reed, played by Jim Carrey, is an ace in the courtroom, but his dishonesty and devotion to work ruin his relationships. His wife, Audrey, played by Maura Tierney, has left him for a more dependable man, and Fletcher often breaks the commitments he makes to his beloved son, Max.
I have not seen this movie since I saw it in the theater. All I remember is a blue pen.
I've never seen it, but the fact that I really, really love Cable Guy, and that was another Jim Carrey movie I hadn't seen from roughly this era, gives me high hopes, at least.
I would lower them.
Well, thank you, Will, for commissioning Notting Hill. Thank you to all of our commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. You can find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, Watchmen, and Westworld, which is in its 4th season right now. You can find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
We're going to share what our parents do for work.
My mom's a teacher.
And your dad?
He's a liar.
You mean he's a lawyer?
Fletcher Reed was climbing the ladder of success.
You're the victim here, driven into the arms of another man.
7.
Yeah, whatever.
One lie.
Tell him it's in the mail. I ran out of gas. You're losing a little weight.
At a time.
The true victim is my client. Put yourself in his shoes for a moment. You're walking from church when suddenly you encounter him pouncing from the shadows.
But what made him a successful lawyer?
Your ex-wife called.
I have to go to court this afternoon.
Fletcher, it's his birthday.
Also made him an unpredictable father.
He said he was gonna be here, he promised.
Until one day, his son decided to make an honest man out of him.
I wish that for only one day Dad couldn't tell a lie.
Was it good for you?
I've had better.
Now,
Any change, mister? Absolutely. Could you spare some? Yes, I could. I can't lie.
all he can do is tell the truth.
Like the new dress?
Whatever it takes to focus off your head.
The whole truth.
You know why I pulled you over?
I changed lanes without signaling while running a red light and speeding.
And nothing but the truth.
It was me. Your wish came true.
You mean you have to tell the truth?
How we doing this morning, Consul?
I'm a little upset about a bad sexual episode I had last night.
From Universal Pictures and Imagine Entertainment, and the director of The Nutty Professor, Jim Carrey. Liar, liar.
New in the building?
Mm-hmm. Everybody's been real nice.
Well, that's because you have big...
It sounds like Christian rock.
It's slowed down this one. It's like Creedy almost.
Yeah,
Oh, there it goes.
That's what I'm saying. Christian rock. Yeah.
Will, I will. Will, I will. All right.